before we start, I know Jitesh has already done this, but a quick mic check. So, can you hear me? Can all of you hear me? If you can type in your responses very quickly. Great. Okay, one of you says I'm unable to hear, but pretty much everybody else says that they can hear us. The video is also on. You should be able to see me, and I'm just kind of adjusting the screen so that you can see Manish as well. Yeah, okay. No video, or everybody saying no video? How do we? Can see, okay, yes, with video. Okay, great, great. I think a lot of you are writing back saying that you can see us. I'm the managing director of Jamboree. I started this company in 1995, and over the last 20 years, I've been helping students like you to apply abroad and to apply to ISB. It's been one of my passions to just help students apply to business schools and see their dreams come true. I'm extremely delighted that joining me today is Munish Sapra. Munish, as some of you know, is the assistant dean at the Indian School of Business. Manish is an alumnus of IIT Kanpur and FMS, and Manish's portfolio at ISB is fairly vast. He handles all of admissions, he handles all of placements, and handles all of alumni relations. So welcome, Manish.
Thanks a ton, Vinny. Yeah, I'm looking forward to interacting with all of you. Yeah.
Manish, would you start by making some opening comments, and then we can pretty much open it for questions?
No, actually, I mean, quite frankly, I've done this with Vineet once earlier, and you know, it's always a pleasure to interact with young aspirants. One simple rule: anything you have as a doubt, no question is a stupid question. If it's something that's bothering you and can be the swing factor in terms of you getting something clarified, please use this opportunity. I appreciate that Vineet has provided this platform for me to interact with all of you. So I think let's just get into the meat of it and let's start it off.
So what I'll request all of you is that, I mean, this is really an opportunity to interact with Manish and ask us questions straight on. And as Manish very candidly said, no question is a bad question. So what we'd really like is that all of you start typing in your questions, and we'll start picking those questions up, and we'll try to make sure that we answer all questions. What I'll also be doing is that some questions which are similar in nature, we'll also put them together in a similar bucket just to avoid repetition and just to make sure that everybody's questions are getting answered. So I see that questions are starting to come in. The first one is really coming from Sumit. What GMAT score is good for ISB, or what is the kind of score ISB is looking at? And I have a comment from Saurabh. Saurabh, you were the only one saying no voice. I think pretty much, I'm presuming everybody else can hear us. So the first one really around GMAT, and the second one comes from Alan, really around work experience. And Jaya also says I have. So let's pretty much start with these two. I think we had questions from Phanindra, Jaya, Alan, Sumit. Two questions really around GMAT. One of them specifically saying, is 650 kind of score enough? What's the kind of GMAT score you need? So Manish, maybe let's start with that. What are the GMAT expectations of ISB?
Fair enough. I mean, so honestly speaking, GMAT is only one of the criteria we look at when we evaluate applications. That is not to say that it does not matter, but that's also not to say that it can override everything else. You need to write in your essays, make sure that you tell us about yourself, provide us a peek into your profile. Obviously, we are looking for people with well-rounded profiles. GMAT, pre-ISB academic experience, your work experience in terms of quantity and quality, as well as how you do in the interview. These are the things which all go into the evaluation process. We do not have sort of any cutoffs for GMAT, but let me be very candid. In our 14-year history of admitting people, we have not admitted people with scores of less than 600. So as soon as you have a GMAT score which is upwards of that, then all the other things come into play, and it's how you present yourself and the application that you send it.
Okay, so Manish, I think what you're really saying is that 600 and above is case for you to apply. You know, let me put you a little bit in a spot here. We also noticed that the ISB GMAT average is a little over 700. So what does that mean really? I mean, you know, are you admitting a large percentage of the class in the 620, 650, 660 range? Or is it more like a higher 600?
So honestly, Vineet, you are aware that we have a fairly large class size. If you look at this particular year across our 2 campuses, the class size is 830. So if you have an average GMAT score which is 700, you still have a huge number of students in the class who did have a score less than 700. Now, does it mean that if you have a 630 GMAT score, you know, because you're above the 600 threshold, you will get in? No. But if you have a 630 GMAT score and you have, you know, an interesting profile, you have done well academically, you know, prior to applying, there is no reason why you sort of can't make it. It's a combination of things which go into it. There is this view in the market sometimes, and you and I have discussed this, that there's no point in even thinking of applying to ISB if your GMAT is not 700. All I'm saying is that is not true.
Correct.
Proof of the pudding is in the eating. We have students in each of our classes who have scores which are less than 700.
Right. So Manish, I think that is quite candid, and I'm sure this kind of really would be setting a lot of concern to rest. I mean, you're really saying, look, you are really encouraging people to apply, saying if you have a 600 and above, do take your chance. Let me move on because there were some questions around work experience. Is 1 or 2 years enough? Then there was another question which really, one from Drishti says, what is the minimum work ethic? There was another one from another applicant who said, look, is 8 years too much, or, you know, so what's your take on the work experience? I mean, what's really the ideal range, and what's your take on work?
Let me answer questions related to work experience. For the regular PGP, the minimum work experience required is 2 years. There is no upper limit. And ISB is a school which, you know, actually welcomes people at different ends of the work experience spectrum because they contribute to each other's learning. Now, at the end of the day, we also have a couple of other options. We have the Young Leaders program, which is directed at the colleges. This year, we've expanded it to include people who are in pre-final and final year. And we've got the early entry option, which is, I saw some question earlier about somebody who mentioned that they had 8 months of experience. So they can apply under the early entry option. However, you only join the class after completing 2 years of work experience. So that is how we sort of structured it. You can still apply, you can go through the process of selection, you can be made an offer, and depending upon what your work experience is up to the March of a particular year, where the session starts in April, will determine which class you apply to. As far as, of course, the regular PGP, as I mentioned, 2 years of work experience onwards, and no upper limit. Every year in our class, we have a senior executive club, which consists of people with 8 years plus of experience. And we really do believe that people with different ends of the spectrum in terms of work experience contribute to each other.
Right. So, related to that, I mean, I know you mentioned that there's no upper limit. I'm still taking this a little head on. The Dheeraj says is 13 plus too much. So is work experience beyond a certain point? 8 year plus, 9 year plus, 12 year. I know, whereas you take, but does that become a disadvantage, Manish?
What we do expect is that what are you looking to do after ISB? If you have a very high amount of work experience and then you are completely looking to change your industry, 2 things that we urge people with high work experience. 1, are you prepared to become a student again? Because you're not going to be given any relaxation in the class. Secondly, in your post-ISB job, are you prepared to be realistic? If you're changing your industry and expecting the company to give full weightage to the number of years you put in, then I think you just need to realize that that may not happen. As long as people are prepared to become a student again, as long as people are realistic in terms of their career choices post-ISB, you can have 13, 14, 15 years of work experience. Again, proof of the pudding is in the eating. In each class of ISB, You have people with 15 to 20 years of experience. There are examples of those kinds of people as well, apart from the people who have lesser work experience.
Okay. Great. So I think the work ex bit you really answered, and that's quite explicit. I mean, there are specific questions from a Bhumika, etc., saying 5 years work ex, GMAT of 620, etc. I think those are extremely specific, and I'm assuming, Manish, it's very difficult for you to comment on whether this person can get in or not just by 5-year work ex. I think you.
I still feel that, you should apply. I think you're in the range to apply, and then you need to make sure that your application brings out what you're all about. And in the event that you get shortlisted, then you need to do well in your interview. So, I would rather that we, use this opportunity to tackle more general questions, because individual profile-based questions, it's difficult to give a yes or no answer at this point. Yeah.
So, but I think that's quite a candid answer. I mean, you're really telling Bhumika, I mean, it's okay, 5 years, 620, do take your chance. Let's move on a little bit to quality of application, essays, etc. I think some of the things that determine the quality of an application. I have a question from Vignesh which says, what to put in an essay? Simple plus rustic, or should it be polished and professional? Or there's another one which says that what qualities do you want to see in an essay, right? This one is from Srishti. Maybe let's take the essays part first, Munish. So clearly, what are your expectations from an essay? Polished, professional, simple, rustic? What qualities are you looking at?
First of all, one direct input is that the essays should reflect who you are. So be truthful. What is the purpose of the application? You are hoping that will allow you to get shortlisted for an interview. You're going to have an extremely experienced panel there, combining of senior staff and alumni. And the worst thing that you can do to yourself is that the essays really don't represent yourself, and when the interview starts, it comes across that, that's not the person who had sort of applied, or you're not matching up to what you're saying. Now, as far as rustic, professional is concerned, obviously the essay should read well. But, if you think and write in a certain way, then just stick to it. This is the Indian school of business. At the end of the day, we cherish people from all backgrounds. We are not, going to hold it against people if they're not using the Queen's English or very fancy words in all their answers. At the end of the day, you should be able to put your point across. The essay should give us a peep into what you are as a person, and can therefore serve as an opening to further discussions in terms of selection. So that would be my advice to your essay.
Okay. And maybe we'll come back. And I think a related question on essays is on this whole element of leadership. What kind of leadership do you look at IIT? Prateek asked this question separately, but is there a particular view on leadership you have? I mean, that's the way I'm interpreting this question.
I also saw a question where, somebody was saying, how do you evaluate quality of work experience? So let me try and answer that in conjunction. It's not just a question of how many years you work. What have you done in that period? What opportunities you've had to show leadership? Sometimes people on the lower end of the work experience totem pole feel they've not had leadership exam, but you could have been part of a project. You could have taken the lead in a multi-departmental project and done something great. So leadership opportunities is something that you need to highlight, but they need to be factual. Again, I would repeat, do not highlight examples of leadership for the sake of them. But if you've had a career of a certain, length, there will be some, places where you've stepped up to the plate, you've done something which displayed leadership. The other thing that I would leave as a thought with you is that for people with lower work experience, who probably have just done one job where they haven't had leadership, nothing prevents you, when we talk of leadership, of looking outside the work life. In your personal life, there could be opportunities where you've displayed leadership, where you had to step up the plate in a family situation, or in terms of society, or in terms of, a sports team. So all of that you can bring in to display that you have the ability to sort of show leadership.
Okay, just related to the WorkX leadership element, Munish, there are also questions around social work, NGO. I mean, I have a question particularly from, let me see what names do I have. Okay, Ashima is asking, is NGO experience given weightage? There was another question I had, how much does social work count for?
Yeah. So
Any quick comment?
yeah. Again, truthfulness is the key. You feel that if you sort of mention that you are socially aware and you have done some NGO work, if that's really been your calling, you've been doing it for some time, that is fine. Often in interviews, it becomes awkward when people realize that the NGO work was started just at the time of applying to ISP. Doesn't work, guys. I mean, it should be something, if you're genuinely interested in that kind of thing, you've been doing it in your school, you've been doing it in your college, it's a truthful kind of thing. Obviously, it shows another dimension to your personality and it adds to it. But my strong recommendation is that it should not come across that has been put in there for effect or just to boost up the application. It's not as if you're going to be left out if you don't have it. As you know, focus on the other things which are truthful, which you can bring out, which are actually things which you have done. And use that as the basis for the interview is what I would say. Yeah.
I would also like to add in this context that sometimes faking social work or faking NGO experience can also stand out very clearly, right? And that will go to a disadvantage. So I think Manish, the point he's making again and again, be truthful, let the actual qualities come out. Continuing on some WorkX points, I mean, do you give extra weightage to international WorkX? That's one question. Can diverse WorkX offset low GMAT? Any take on these two?
Yeah, so I would say that in terms of international work experience, my response is this. It's again what you did there. What actually was the role you were doing, what kind of opportunities it provided you with. We do not discriminate against local work experience. Let's be honest. In our class, we have a lot of people who worked abroad and come back. But then the questioning is again on what did you do there? What was your job? What were you actually doing? What kind of leadership you showed in those contexts? So we are very careful in terms of not getting enamored unnecessarily by international work. Having said that, we also do not want to feel that international work experience does not have value. So we will give it the sort of same weightage. That is one answer related to work experience. The other question that you were saying...
what will diverse WorkX offset low GMAT?
So I would say that, I pointed out about the fact that pre-ISB academics, GMAT score, work experience, and if you get shortlisted, then performance in the interview. These are the things which go into the overall selection. Obviously, if you have very strong pre-ISB acads and you have a low GMAT, there is an offsetting going on. If your work experience is a certain way, it can help. So all of these factors, let me also clarify one thing. The weightages are such that not one thing can help you get in and not one thing can help you get out, apart from certain basic hygiene levels, etc. So I would say that at the end of the day, and when I say hygiene levels, like for example in GMAT, I was very clear with you that the hygiene level for us is 600. You have to be above 600 to be in the running. So with those, this offsetting can definitely work.
Just, I know I'm pushing the button on the WorkX a little, but I think a lot of questions need to be related to that before we switch gear. I think Sonali is making a valid point. She asks, how do you define, please elaborate on quality work experience. What do you really mean by quality work?
Again, what you did there, what kind of opportunities, you had, whether you were involved in some exciting projects, whether you were involved in some, great opportunities for collaboration, whether you were involved in some opportunity where you could take leadership of a team and take things to the next level, whether there was an extremely stressful situation and, for the organization because of certain complications and, you were able to step up the plate along with the team or individually. Those are all examples. My, again, point back is it should be truthful, because when the level of questioning gets into depth with an experienced panel, it will come out as to whether it was really something that you had achieved stuff in, or whether you decided to write about it, without thinking it through. So if truthful, all of these can be opportunities of great work experience. Before we move on, Vineet, I'm seeing some questions on people who are very curious about the Young Leaders
Yeah,
program.
I know. I was about to come.
And I just want to say that the website and that particular link page for the Young Leaders is up. That has a deadline of March 25th. This year, we have expanded the scope of Young Leaders to include pre-final and final year. It was earlier only pre-final year. Now you can apply even in the final year. As far as specific questions related to Young Leaders program are concerned, visit the website, check out the requirements, etc. Because it has a more extended period, we will be doing specific webinars related to the Young Leaders program. In the admissions team in ISB, there is a person called Sanjay Dhingra, who is in charge of the Young Leaders program. So he will be organizing webinars which are related to the Young Leaders program, and do participate in them. But I just wanted to give you this broad information regarding Young Leaders right now, so that you have it, and I've seen some interest in a lot of people.
So I think, Kumar, your question is addressed where you were asking whether your daughter can apply to the Young Leaders in the final year. What is the GMAT score, average GMAT score for YLP? Any data around that?
No, again, what we have seen is that the GMAT score of the people who apply under the Young Leaders program is actually higher. I don't find that very surprising. You and I, Vineet, both are aware that in terms of GMAT taking, young people often score higher, and once you've spent a fair amount of time in your work life, it becomes difficult to take sort of tests. So I would not ascribe any sort of, thing apart from just the reality to it. Again, as I said, we select from the Young Leaders who we think are the brightest, and GMAT is again not the only criteria for selection.
Yeah. Right. Moving a little bit to careers, there is this question that really around the 1 year MBA. I mean, Shiva asked this question: is the 1 year MBA okay for a career switch? I'll just follow some more with the career related questions. But is the 1 year okay for? Do you see people really switching careers?
A lot of people do, but I think that they do because they do that because they work very hard. I mean, again, it's a question of, if you're looking to change your career, get into a different industry, then you need to use that 1 year well. You should have a clear plan, what kind of courses you take, the effort that you put in. So I would say it's not as if it's easy and everything can do it, but the instances of people who come to ISP and in a 1 year program which does not even have internship specifically, but still make a career change is very high. I brought out the internship because I saw a question related to that. We have projects, live projects. They are called experiential learning programs. We don't have internship because in a 51 week it becomes difficult to factor in an internship. But I am telling you that the percentage of people who make a career shift in ISB is very high, but they work very hard to make it happen.
Right. It's one specific question from Anubhav, careers, related to careers only. Is a professional, this was really around analytics, I think. Let me come back to that, but just Alan and Umesh asked this question. There's a public sector experience. Is it counted at par?
Oh, absolutely. In classes every year, you have people with a public sector background who come in. Absolutely, sort of not an issue. I mean, we are very, very clear about the fact that your work experience can be in any sphere. It can be in any sector. And a lot of the people who come in from public sector do extremely well and find jobs in the private sector.
Or any preference to certain industries in Vortex?
No, actually no. ISB strongly believes that you can have your work experience in any sphere and still sort of join us, because that's the way we can, attract people from diverse backgrounds. We pride ourselves on the fact that not only you get an opportunity to learn from the best minds in terms of our faculty, but also learn from each other. And that is only possible when we attract people from diverse backgrounds. I mean, people come in and saying, I'm a failed entrepreneur. And quite frankly, if they have understood the reasons as to why their business did not work, if they have a plan in terms of what they are going to do in the future, a lot of them get in. So social sector, public sector, as you said, normal private sector jobs, all kinds of people are welcome.
Okay, professional course in music, does that count?
Again,
Anubhav had this question.
Yeah, again, you get an opportunity in the application to talk about, achievements like this. You must list them. It could lead to discussion at the time of the sort of interview, and it may show that you can manage various things at a time. So again, when people say extracurriculars, it's more a question of what is the width of things that you've done, and then if it gets picked up and there's a discussion around it, it should come across as genuine, and we'll take the interview will go from there. Yeah.
I'm just coming back to this. Any particular course geared towards analytics? This is a question from Akshay.
Yes. So we have the Indian School of Business actually has a certificate program in business analytics, which is completely distinct from the PGP program. Having said that, the course modules, etc., all get listed. If you go and see, even within the PGP, there is analytics being taught. But I would also like to point out that you need to carefully look at whether you are focused only on analytics, and in that sense, whether the certificate program in analytics makes sense to you.
Right. Right. Any placements in oil and gas sector after that? Sonali had this question, and I'm pretty much continuing on the track of career.
Yeah.
Another question is, what career options open after 1 year program? I think it's a similar.
So I think that quite frankly, Vineet mentioned about the fact that apart from overseeing admissions, I also oversee placement. ISB attracts the best of recruiters across industries. Any industry segment that you say, we have recruiters. Domestic, a lot of international recruiters as well. So there is no segment which is not covered. However, if you turn around and say that, can I be sure that I will get into this particular sector? That will completely depend on how those recruiters find your profile, whether you get shortlisted by them, how you do in the interview if you are sort of shortlisted. Believe you me, in terms of the number of corporates which come to recruit on campus in ISB, it is unparalleled in India, and there are opportunities available in every sector that you can think of.
Right. Okay, I think, Munish, I'm going to come back, switch gears and really come back to, I think, the one question that does bother most applicants about what profile helps. Would be an engineer, is engineer a disadvantage, advantage, etc. So Vishaka asks this question that is an engineering profile, is that inherently at a disadvantage or an advantage?
So I would say this, honestly speaking, if you see the applications that we receive, a large number of engineers do apply to us. But then, quite frankly, because we are looking to create a class which is diverse and which has people, bright people, without compromising in any form on quality, we are looking to create a diverse class. So you could turn around and say that because a large number of engineers apply, they have to compete with each other, and it becomes more difficult. At the same time, when you look at the final class, you will still have a large number of engineers in it. So I would say that, it is important to us that we have diversity in the class, but we don't want diversity for the sake of diversity. I mean, people should be bright, they should be good, they should do well in the interview, and that's how they will get into our classes. So that would be my answer.
But would you make a difference on the GMAT score of an engineer versus a non-engineer? I mean, Sumit has this question, a humanities student and an engineering student. Would the GMAT score differ for both?
Let me give a candid answer to that. I mean, at the end of the day, if you have a larger number of engineers who are, applying and competing, yes, you would probably look at saying what kind of GMAT they can get. And maybe your expectation will be higher, but not to say, if you had an engineer who did not have a very high GMAT score, but had a very interesting profile, had a lot of stuff that he'd done, had shown leadership in his work, then there is no reason why that person would not get it. Yeah.
Academic research, does that count as valid work?
So all of it has to be, full-time work experience post-graduation. That's the benchmark. So the only thing I would urge is where there is a specific question related to this, then write into there is an admissions ID at admissions@isb.edu. Write in and, provide your specific background and get a specific answer, because it will depend on exactly what you've done and whether it qualifies as work experience or not.
I'm just coming back to YLP again because some questions shooting up. Fourth year, Navpreet, you had a question, but as Manish has already clarified, final year and pre-final year, you can now apply to YLP. Can you elaborate a little bit on the YLP selection process? Nishant has this question.
So again, I would urge that for the YLP, we will be doing a webinar, and I would say that just you have time for that, go to the website, check out the requirements. All of it is listed in terms of what are the stages, what are the processes, etc. I mean, given the fact that our PGP final deadline is going to be January 15th, I wanted to use this opportunity more to answer PGP related questions. But having said that, I made sure that when I came into this, because I knew there'll be curiosity, the YLP thing is up and running, and it will provide all your answers on YLP.
And any preference to the master's degree versus bachelor's? I'm assuming no.
No, I mean, no.
Yeah, that really doesn't matter. What about the AWA score on the GMAT?
So honestly speaking, at this particular point in time, people are, most schools who are looking at GMAT are not giving direct weightage to the AWA. GMAC themselves are saying that it's a relatively new thing and will take some time to sort of stabilize.
No, not IR, Manish.
Sorry. I thought you were asking about integrated reasoning. No. AWS scores definitely is one of the things which we factor. All the discussion these days is around IR, so I just assume that the question is related to that.
And what about, I think one of the questions that often gets asked, how much of a role does academics play? Academic grades in your undergrad?
It is one of the components. As I said, ISB pre-CADS, GMAT, work experience, quality, and interview, all of them matter. Pre-ISB CADS is important to us. It does carry weightage. In fact, when people talk about balancing, I think that if you have very strong pre-ISB CADS, end up not doing very well in the GMAT, that's more of a balancing, and vice versa as well. But pre-ISB CADS does play a role.
Right. But do you think the GMAT can kind of offset that? Let's say somebody had a 50-55%.
Yes, absolutely.
And cracks
absolutely.
GMAT, right?
In fact, the only situation in which I advise, so I do info sessions, and when people come for conversations after that, only situation when I advise them to look at a higher GMAT is if they themselves point out the fact that the pre-ISB CADS is rather weak. Otherwise, as I say, I would always say that they are all independent factors, but sometimes you can use a good GMAT score to balance out weak pre-ISB CADS, because you really can't change your pre-ISB CADS now. So you just have to look at the GMAT in that.
And CAT scores are obviously not accepted. I think Ram had a question.
No, we don't. At this point in time, the Indian School of Business looks at only GMAT.
There was some rumor about ISB looking at GRE. That's not happening yet.
Not as yet. I mean, at this point, it's we discuss all of this internally. Yeah. At this particular point in time, we are still only taking GMAT.
And I think some students are still pushing us. So what percentage do you admit below 700? I
can't get into, I would not like to get into percentages and numbers, but I would say that, there is a significant number in the class who do have a GMAT score less than 700. As I said earlier, that at the end of the day, we are serious about looking at overall profile, and therefore have worked very hard to make sure that, bright people with a score of less than 700 who've got a lot to offer are also brought into our class.
Alan is asking deadline for PGP 2016. I think that is quite clear up on the website.
So yeah, I mean, quite frankly, the round 1 is over, and round 2, the deadline is January 15th. That's the point in time.
And how late can you write the GMAT? Can you write by like Jan 14?
Honestly speaking, you can technically write the GMAT on the day of the deadline. You will get a test score. You can apply using the test score, and over the next 3 weeks, then the formal scores can follow. I just want to take the opportunity to once again clarify so that I don't leave anybody with a wrong impression. Integrated reasoning is not formally being considered right now. AWA is. So, I mean, because of the confusion earlier, I did not want to leave anybody with a wrong sort of.
Right. I'm going to come to scholarships now. This is a question coming up again and again. Manish, do you want to elaborate on what are the kind of scholarships available at ISB?
So you have a combination of merit and mean scholarship. Typically 10 to 15% of the class gets either a merit scholarship, which is quite frankly completely dependent upon your final overall weighted average score, and a mean scholarship for which your family income needs to be less than 10 lakhs. I would say this, there is sometimes a myth about the fact that the merit and mean scholarship are only offered in R1. Let me clarify, that is not the case. Merit and mean scholarship are also offered in round 2. The only thing that was pointed out, and we were very frank about, is that there is a limited number of full tuition waivers which are only awarded to people who apply in R1. But merit and mean scholarship are offered to people who apply in our second cycle as well. So therefore, I just want to make it clear, because for most of the people who are on this particular webinar, I think round 2 is what's relevant.
Coming back to placements, Sarthak has this question. Do companies separate class on basis of work ex during placement?
What we have done very successfully, Sarthak, over the last few years is that our careers team has been able to get the same company to post multiple jobs. So therefore they come in with one role where they are looking for, say, people from 2 to 4 years of experience, another role where they are looking for 4 to 7, and so the same company comes and posts multiple roles and picks up students at different ends of the work spectrum for those roles. And that's how we've been able to increase the offtake to these companies and also create a match between the kind of talent pool we have and what the requirements of the company are.
And percentage of class placed, Manish, I'm assuming.
So, so quite frankly, within 3 months of passing out, everybody has been placed with a job provided by ISB. At the time of graduation, the total number of students unplaced is hardly 10 to 12%. And those also get then placed within 3 months of passing out. And in any case, career services support from ISB is for life.
Shavi has this question. What are the opportunities for chartered accountants after?
You have to be very clear as to what you are looking to get into, Shavi. There are a number of finance roles which come on campus. So it depends if that's where you're going to get into. A lot of times chartered accountants want to get into consultancy roles, and consultants do come in with roles where being a chartered accountant is actually considered a positive. So it's more like what you're looking for and working towards it. I mean, there will be opportunities for chartered accountants in the placement cycle.
Round 1 versus round 2. What's the difference in percentage in tech? Any preferences?
Honestly, we do not have a preference. What the reason for these rounds is administrative ease. After having made people apply, and write these essays, fill out all these details, I think it's important that we respect that and give that the time in terms of the selection. That was the reason why 2 rounds were created. We make a certain number of offers in R1, but we also create a wait list. Then we do our R2 interviews and then compare the people who are there with the wait list and make our final offers. So your chances of getting to ISB are no different whether you apply in R1 and R2. My response normally always is apply when you are ready. Obviously the people who are on this webinar felt that they needed more time either in terms of taking their GMAT or in terms of filling their application. I'm telling you that you are not at any kind of disadvantage. Apply when you are ready.
Right. This question, Manish, that comes up pretty much every time. Mohali versus Hyderabad. Right. Which is any preferences? Which is a better campus?
So I'm genuinely hoping, Vinny, that this question actually goes away, because now we've had, multiple years of placements from both campuses. Recruiters have not distinguished between the students from both campuses. Faculty comes and teaches. We still have 65% visiting faculty. They come and teach at both the campuses. So there's no difference in the teaching. It's in any case a unified admission process. People can give a preference, but our commitment to the faculty and recruiters is that we will make a similar cohort at both campuses in terms of average GMAT score, male-female ratio, engineer, non-engineer ratio. So honestly speaking, as far as we are concerned, whichever campus you are on does not make a difference. And I would just say that, you know, over a period of time, I think this will become a non-issue.
And I think this question you've already answered, but prospects of students with a 2 to 3 year work experience.
So, you know, there is this feeling about the fact that you are at a disadvantage with companies if you have lower work experience.
Or even admission to ISB.
Yes, I think it's untrue. The reason why on the placement side what we've seen is a lot of the companies come in with what they call leadership roles. And there they are looking to actually get leadership programs where they're actually looking to get in relatively younger people and imbibe their own company strategy or culture in them, move them around in various departments and then identify where they want to go. And we have found that for those kinds of leadership programs, they're quite happy with students who have 2 to 3 years of work experience. So as I said, I mean, we are sensible to realize that we'll have to get a diversity of jobs to campus if we have to place our students given the diversity in their work experience. So I don't think any particular segment is at a disadvantage.
And there is also this feeling, Munish, and this question also comes up again and again. Students who are coming with 8-10 years. There was a question that I'm 32 years old. And is there a challenge placing people who have more number of years of work after ISB?
No, I feel that there the only thing that we have found is that people need to be realistic. I mean, if you're changing your industry, then you have to be realistic in terms of the fact that you may not get a job which gives 100% weightage to those number of years. Take a job which you are getting, go and prove yourself there and take it forward from there. Where you are sticking to your industry, the expectation that your previous work experience should be given due weightage is there. So I think I've seen a lot of people with significant work experience make switches. The only thing is they've been realistic in terms of entry points into the new industry.
Do you normalize scores from different universities? Is that the question? What would you mean with that? I mean, if you have, okay. So, I mean, academic scores, let's say people are from different universities.
Absolutely. There are two things which go in when you evaluate pre-ISB acads. The university and its quality and how you've done there. And we are very cognizant of the fact that a 63% in a particular educational system can mean a very different thing from an 82% in another system. And believe you me, all that has been factored in while arriving at the rating given to your pre-ISB acads.
Now, let's come to extracurriculars a little bit. I think this is something we didn't touch on. What kind of, Sago had this question and I think Shashank has a similar question. What kind of ECAs, would be considered for YLP? And Shashank has that 2 years of membership in prominent student councils in college. Any point in mentioning this, of course?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that the opportunity to mention all of that is there. You should. I think that in terms of weightage, if you're saying we get overly swayed by that, I would say no. But it provides, the people who interview you are going to read your application threadbare. And, depending upon their own interests, etc., what specific thing they pick on in the interview, it cannot be pre-guessed. My one thing is there that if you mention stuff in your application and it becomes a discussion point, it's very important that you come across then as authentic. You may have mentioned that you play chess. And supposing on the panel somebody has a genuine interest. When he starts talking to you about it, if it comes across that you just mentioned it for the heck of it, have no understanding that who's the current champion, who were previous champion, understanding the fact that the Russians were the top of the chess game for a long time, etc. So the depth shown in whatever you list out as your interest is crucial. Because if it does get picked upon as a discussion point, They will probe you for authenticity and for actually having that as a real interest rather than just a created interest.
I'm coming back a little bit of, ECA specifically, Munish, in the context of YLP application.
Yes.
Because there you pretty much don't have buckets to judge on.
Yes.
So I'm assuming.
Yes, I mean, so we are realistic. We are realistic.
But is ECA contributing a whole lot to the whole leadership dimension, etc., especially for a YLP candidate?
As soon as I was saying, Vineet, earlier also that, when you look at early entry option or you look at YLP, given that there is not much of work experience, to expect any kind of, great leadership opportunities, we have to be realistic. But my answer to that is very simple. You could have had these opportunities in your personal life. There you should feel free to point out those instances. Because obviously you're not able to do that from the point of view of your work experience perspective, but you can reflect on your life and see where you've had opportunities to either show leadership, step up to the plate in a family situation, friends, a sports team, and those things. And those will definitely be given weightage.
Right. Let me come and talk a little bit about international placement. So there are some questions. How many international job offers versus domestic? Which countries are people placed in?
So every year I would say that 10% of the offers are international.
So that's about 70, 80 offers.
Correct. And the only thing is there that, given work visa restrictions in Europe and US, I want to be very candid. In the recent past, a lot of the jobs which are being offered are coming from Asia, are coming from the Middle East. People have to be realistic. I mean, they need to be, if you're really interested in making a career in an international location, you need to pick what's available, go there and move on from there. If the expectation is that you'll get a lot of jobs offers directly out of the United States or directly out of the UK, the reality is that's not been happening. Having said that, you will have job offers coming in from definitely the Middle East. Indonesia is showing a lot of promise. Thailand is showing a lot of promise. You'll have opportunities in Africa. Now, if the question is, why would we sort of want to go there? If you're really, interested in making an international career, sometimes you should take these calls because they can provide you a leg up into getting wherever you want to go.
Just a couple of more questions around the whole admissions thing. If you do not know where you want to be post-IIT, is that any determinant? I think Ashima had this question. Is that a disadvantage? Does it matter?
My own view to that, Ashima, is that spend time to see what you really want, and having a game plan is crucial so that you maximize things during the year. I mean, if you come in and you're sort of totally blank about where you want to go, people can turn around and say that I will explore that during the year. And that's fine. But, important to have a basic plan, think about it, because I'm very candid about the fact that ISB represents a significant financial investment and also a year of your life. To get the maximum from that, having some kind of plan is important.
I think there's another question Malika has been asking. Let's say you apply with a GMAT score X, but then you get a better score, right? Now, will you be open to the second score? And the question really is, what if it happens after the deadline?
So, the honest answer to that is that we consider the best score till the application is made. If you are going to, I pointed out already that even you can take the GMAT on the date of the deadline and still apply with your test score with the actual formal score following 3 weeks down the line. That's fine. But if the question is that the deadline has gone and then you go ahead and take a score and send it, we will not be able to consider that.
One of these, Mihir has this question. What are the prospects post ISB for people who want to become entrepreneurs? I think that's something we can dwell on.
Entrepreneurship is a key theme in ISB. At the end of the day, there is a course, an elective course called Planning an Entrepreneurial Venture, which allows people to develop their ideas. It's a formal credit course. Entrepreneurship is one of the things that you can major in, just like marketing and finance. If you take the right number of courses, then you can major in entrepreneurship. Just also to let you know, in terms of our placements, for the last couple of years, we have been hosting a startup day as part of our placements. Sometimes what happens is people are keen to become entrepreneurs, but they don't want to take the risk on day one. So they want to work with a startup where they are in a senior position, so they get a ringside view of what it means to make a startup, and then after a couple of years of that, they start their own venture. So believe you me, entrepreneurship is a key theme in the Indian School of Business. We have an entrepreneurship cell which provides support. So you will not regret if you're looking to get in from an entrepreneurship perspective into ISB.
Any support for startups?
Yes. So this cell actually allows you. They have a scheme where if your idea is considered good enough, they provide you with support in terms of a space on campus, some faculty support, as well as a stipend. But that all kicks in only after they've evaluated your idea. So yes, there is support provided for a limited period of time before you can find your feet, but your idea has to be good enough.
Manish, would you also have dates for the 2017 intake? Are they going to be similar?
So honestly speaking, we, after several years of a certain deadline, Vineet knows this, based on feedback from the market, revised our dates this year, which our second deadline was extended to January 15th. Our first was extended to October 15th. Having made this change this year, it's fairly likely that we will be sticking to these dates next year. I mean, a formal decision obviously gets taken only in April, but it's very likely that we won't keep changing our dates and confusing the market every year. So October 15th and January 15th as cycle 1 and cycle 2 guidelines are very likely for next year.
So questions from Nitin and Vipul had a similar question. R&D experience at DRDO, any chance of consulting role post ISB? And how will ISB consider this particular candidate for admission?
We will be open in terms of work experience. In terms of the roles that you get afterwards, see, consulting, it's very difficult to predict what kind of roles they land up. It depends on what projects they have from their clients. So we have seen a huge diversity in the kind of people that they pick up. Now, if you come in from this background, one of the consultants is undertaking a project related to that, they may actually grab you and you may love your profile. But that's not something which can be predicted in advance, is what I would say.
Any companies had placements for defense and transportation?
A lot of people who join us from an armed forces, naval background, often take up majors in operations management, logistics, supply chain. And Vineet, that is one area where a number of recruiters are coming up and picking up people.
And I'm assuming, Manish, since we are on this armed forces background.
Yes, absolutely. So absolutely. I mean, what they do is, so you have to be realistic again. You have to then make sure that you major in, logistics, supply chain, and then take on sort of these roles. But I have seen a lot of companies which are very happy with that combination. Armed forces stroke defense background, and then come in and have that kind of education, and then join them in fairly senior positions. Right. In fact, I also saw some questions where people were curious about PGP Max. Just to clarify there, that's a modular part-time program, 15 months, classes 1 week every 6 weeks, but the minimum work experience requirement is 10 years. I saw somebody who said that with 8 years good enough. No. 10 years is the minimum work experience requirement. Our average experience in our PGP Max class currently is 18 years, but once you have 10 years of experience, you are eligible to apply.
Yeah. Coming a little bit on IT applicants, how does this question also typically gets asked? I mean, this is a large part of the class is IT applicants. How do IT applicants differentiate themselves? Is designation and job profile, do they help differentiate? What is your take on?
I know that, even in the info sessions when we conduct, this is a concern for engineers with IT background who are worried that there is nothing very glamorous in what they have done. 2 or 3 points I have. You can't change what you are. Use the opportunity for what you've done in your work experience to highlight what you've done and what are the kind of projects, etc., which you have undertaken. But also, in terms of distinguishing A from B, also look at what you are as a person. I mean, you may have specific things which you've done as an individual. You may have certain things in your personal life where you would have shown certain things. So bring all of that into the application in terms of this whole differentiation.
I think there's some questions. I don't know whether you would like to share this, Manish. Any means TTC?
So we actually publish a placement report, which is on our website. And, for last year, the salary, the median salary was in the 19 to 20 lakh range. The economy is picking up. Our placements have just commenced for this year. We are seeing companies coming in and offering higher salaries. I'm very confident that when the placement report is put up for this particular year, it will show a decent increase in the salary on a year-over-year basis. But as I said, go to our website, go to our placement report. It provides a lot of information, even in terms of sectors and salaries.
We did touch on recommendations, so I'm just going to come there, Munish. There were some questions around that. Recommendations from employer or college?
So again, if your work experience is relatively less, we fully understand that a lot of your recommendations may come from professors or college. But supposing you have, say, 8 or 9 years of work experience, then the expectation will be that your recommendations will come from work experience. One thing that I would say is we've come to understand that sometimes people are hesitant in getting a recommendation from their boss because they do not want to go and tell them that they are possibly planning to go ahead and do an MBA. We fully understand that. You can get a recommendation in work from peers. You can get from somebody who's more senior to you but not your boss in another area. You may have worked on a project and people, involved in that may give you a recommendation. But normally, Vineet, where the work experience is fairly high, the expectation is that the recommendations will be from work experience. Right. Where it is low, we are very open to accepting recommendations from professors, etc.
And you still need to, right?
Yes.
Somebody had a question, I think.
Yes, we still need to.
Yeah.
We still need to.
One recommendation is not going to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Any quick tips on recommendations? Everybody's recommendations look good. People tear off recommendations if they don't.
So I would say that it should, ideally should be authentic. It should be from someone who's actually worked with you. People sometimes get carried away in trying to get recommendations from as senior a person as possible. But the problem is in those recommendations is because we send them the form to fill in directly, you just have to give us a name. Then that person, because he's not spent any time with you, it clearly comes across that it's more like just an acquaintance and there's no depth to the recommendation. You are better off not necessarily going by just seniority, but going by people who actually have spent time with you so that they can provide a recommendation which gives us a peek into you and is more in depth.
And Sonali, yes, 2 recommendations are enough. You really don't need, and scholarship opportunities round 1, round 2 are similar.
Yes, so I will be very candid that apart from the full tuition waivers, which were restricted to applications in round 1, for merit and mean scholarship, it is available to both round 1 and round 2. Yeah.
Any school achievements count in the YLP while applying for the YLP?
Yes, I would say in YLP it would, because again, in terms of where you are, I mean, if so you're applying in the pre-final year. So you've just had, say a couple of years of college. So a lot of your experiences, etc., may be related to school. The more, I would say the lesser is your work experience, the relevance of school and, personal stuff becomes higher.
And any chance with a 570? I know somebody is pushing their luck, but any chance with a 570?
My strong recommendation is that, people like Vineet run these lovely companies like Jamboree, which provide great coaching. So I would say that on a 570, need to go back and, give the GMAT again, try and make sure that you end up with a 600 plus score and then look at apply. Because quite frankly, there is a fee involved when you apply. You have to spend a fair amount of time in filling in the essays. And I just want to be candid that I do not want you also then to waste your time when I know for a fact that at 570, you will get filtered out when we do our original filtering out.
I think we have time for a couple of questions more, so maybe 1 or 2. Paras had a question around if somebody is an entrepreneur but small ventures only. Any disadvantage compared to somebody who's working at an MNC?
No, not at all. I think that, quite frankly, as I said, on what you've been doing, we are very open-minded. I think that, it's what you've done as an entrepreneur, is what we will look at. What is that you bring to the table, how your venture is done, and interestingly, as I said earlier, good or bad. I mean, in the sense that if it's not gone well, what have you learned from it? This feeling that you have to be in a multinational to be, able to apply to the Indian School of Business is not correct. we are very open to people from diverse
And
backgrounds.
Jatin is still pushing us. He says that when you tick on the LOR, you can add only one name. Is that an error or that's not correct?
No, Jatin, I would say that again, if you think, then just write into admissions@isb.edu and clarify this.
You do
in
need
terms
two
of-
LORs.
Yes.
I mean, guys, I would just clarify again, everybody, you do need two LORs. One LOR will not do. You do need two. If somebody says they can add only one, then they are definitely spotting an error. I'm going to extend this by 1 or 2 more minutes just to answer some more questions. I'm partial to our friends from the armed forces. So Anubhav was asking, 40 plus years of age, armed forces, do companies accommodate a 360-degree switch?
Just one clarification on the LORs. In terms of your 1 or 2 LORs, can you just clarify once more? I know we used to always insist on 2 LORs. For this particular year, just clarify whether that has been reduced to 1 LOR or not. I strongly urge that if you have contacted ISP and they have clearly told you that it is 1 LOR, then go with that. Just check that out.
Okay, is it one? I think there are some answers coming, Manish, that apparently people have called ISP
Sure.
and they have been told.
Sure. Yeah.
Guys, Manish is clarifying that there could be one LOR.
Yeah.
He might not be fully updated on that, so please do go with that.
Yeah, go with whatever clarification is provided
coming from
in terms of LORs. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's Shruti, you had asked 18 months work ex. I think Manish is very clear for the normal program. You do need 2 years of full-time work ex. I think we have, Rohan has been asking this question again and again. What's your stance on applicants with corporate sponsorship?
So I mean, honestly, if you have a corporate sponsorship, that's fine. You still have to go through our process. You still have to meet all our parameters. And at the end of the day, it's not as if that's a sort of a direct cakewalk, Rohan. But if you have that bow in your arrow and, it's something where you are going to then go back to that company, obviously, which means that you're not going to be dependent on ISP on placements. That's something that you can mention in your application. But to suggest that that would obviate the need for all the other things would not be correct.
And gap year, Manish, how does a gap year look on the application?
We do understand it. We get a lot of applicants where there is a gap year. There should be, don't hide it, be upfront about it, use an opportunity to use one of the essays to point out the reason for it and explain it. It almost inevitably will come as a discussion point in the interview. Just explain that as well.
And healthcare, is that part of the PGP specialized or is it a separate course?
So what we have now is you have your standard specializations which you can do, and you also have cross-reference specializations with the institutes we have. When the Mohali campus was set up, you had 4 institutes: healthcare, public policy, infrastructure, and the 4th one is manufacturing. And they also have listed courses. So effectively you can get a healthcare specialization as well by taking sufficient number of courses for that. So that is again something that you just have to go to the website, see what the courses are, and you can specialize in healthcare as well.
Yeah, Anubhav, just to repeat, Manish did mention that the 40 plus years is fine. You can apply. There are opportunities available for you. I can validate that as well. At Jamboree, we've helped a lot of candidates who are senior in the armed forces, people even with a colonel kind of a rank applying to ISB, going to ISB and then making good career switches.
In the spirit also of, not leaving you guys with any wrong information, 2 things I would revisit. Letters of recommendation. It's been clarified to some of you directly that it's 1, then it's 1. The second thing was, we talked about GMAT score and the fact that it's the integrated reasoning which is not given weighted. So again, repeating that these are things which I'm clarifying right now.
AWA?
Yes, it is given weighted and has been in the past as well.
I think we're last date for submitting LOR, pretty much that's your application date.
It is the application.
I think we are coming to a close. We've extended our time by 5 minutes. Manish, I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to really spend such a late evening today. It's almost 5 minutes past 10 and you've really been very kind to spend so much time.
No, I think these are all work experience guys. So I mean, and given the traffic in Delhi, but wherever they are, for them to get back and to be able to log on to a webinar, I think 9 o'clock works. So from that perspective, I hope it was useful for you. And as I said, I mean, there will also be webinars related to YLP. There was a lot of interest there, which we'll sort of take it from there. But I had a great time talking to all of you. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I know there are still questions coming in and we can't take all of them. We will try and ask Munish to join us again, hopefully before the ISB deadline commences. But thank you so much. It's been a great interaction. You guys have been awesome. Thank you so very much.